Hey guys, we're going to be doing wraps, gun wraps and straps and all that kind of goodness today. We're going to be using one of my eliminators as an example. The sniper barrel wrap is pretty popular, so we're going to go ahead and show you guys how to do that. First thing we're going to need is some green stuff. I've already got mine mixed up, and the best thing that you can do that's going to be the biggest payoff for this type of sculpting is being patient and mixing up your green stuff and letting it set for at least an hour. This has been setting for about an hour, almost an hour and a half, and it's actually still pretty pliable, but it's just really important that it's not completely fresh. You want it to be not so hard that you can't work with it anymore, but you definitely want it. So when you roll out your straps, we're going to be stretching them a little bit so they get even thinner, and it's just going to be a lot easier to work with. And then when we apply them to the model, there's less of a chance that they are going to be marred by tools, and they're going to look a lot more true and to scale. So as usual, I have my little jar of water here. I keep my fingers wet while I'm mixing it. And like I said, I mixed this over an hour ago and let it set. When I let my green stuff set, I like to stretch it out. I feel like more air hitting it is going to make it cure a little faster, as opposed if I just rolled it into a ball, I feel like it'd cure a little slower. Don't know if that's the case or not, it's just what I do. So mixing this up a little bit just to kind of get it malleable, keeping my fingers wet. And I like to keep a little blade on my hobby desk for the area that I'm going to be working my green stuff on, and I kind of use it as a scraper and get rid of any kind of little dust or debris that gets on my, there's all kinds of little plastic bits that I've sanded that I've seen in my green stuff, and you just want it as clean as possible for the scale we're working on. Like every little piece of dust can mean something, so it's not a huge deal. You can work it into the weathering or whatever, but you know, you just kind of want it to be clean. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to break off a little piece, and I like to take the water and put it on the table. The longer you set the green stuff up, the less it's going to want to stick, so there's a balance there. And when I roll my coils out, I'm going to keep my fingers wet. Use two fingers. It's kind of like rolling out a coil of clay. And just keep working at it. Start rolling it, spreading your fingers apart. You're stretching it a little bit, depending on how thick you want your straps. And there's a couple of different ways to make straps. This is just how I do it. You're going to find your own way if you want to start experimenting. Some people like to roll out almost like a tarp with a rolling pin, and then they'll come in with an X-Acto knife and a straight edge, and they'll actually cut their straps so they're perfect. I like mine to be a little irregular. I think it looks like they tan to hide and use their knife and cut it out. It's just the way I like to do it. So this is my favorite sculpting tool. It's just a regular toothpick. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we keep that table wet. We roll out our coil, and I wet the toothpick. What I do is I start from the middle, and what we're doing is we're going to flatten this out. And I'm very lightly pressing down on it. I'm not pushing very hard at all, and you'll kind of feel it out. I like to start in the middle because if you start at the edge, it'll want to wrap around the toothpick, which isn't a huge deal. Just unravel it and put it back on the table. The water on the table stops it from sticking, and this is kind of an important part in my process. Once I get it rolled out flat, I'll lift up the tail. You want to get your kind of fingers wet. I'll lift up the tail and I'll stretch it. I'll hold down one side with a toothpick, and I'll even take the toothpick and sort of massage it a little bit and pull it. And what that's going to do is it's going to stretch it thinner and make it look a little bit more natural. It won't look like a coil rolled out and smashed with a toothpick. It'll look a little bit more like a natural strip of something, strip of rawhide or leather or something like that. So getting pretty good. So we'll go to our trusty hobby knife. Got a flat edge, and you don't want to work with a piece that's too long unless it's on a spot that's really easy to work with. Like the end of this gun is going to be pretty easy to work with because it's floating out in space. There's not like, we're not threading it through arms and stuff like that, which you'll get there eventually where you're putting around gauntlets and their legs and stuff. So what I'm going to do is probably go for, I don't know, maybe I will go for a longer piece. Let's just see what happens. I'll go for a longer one. Use my blade to lift it up. And this is the plus side to dealing with green stuff that's been setting up for a little while. If we pick this up with our fingers, we're less likely to put fingerprints into it. I'm still going to try to avoid that, but we're less likely to do that. So the real trick is, so I want this thread, I want that, see that little slide on the top of the gun? I think it's cool when it goes through there. See if I can make that happen. I picked it up. See if I can thread it through there. Grab my toothpick. Trying to let gravity be on our side. Push it through there. Because it's wet, it's wanting to stick a little bit. If I can coax it through. Be a little easier if it wasn't so long, but not wanting to go. There it goes. A little bit. So what I'm going to do is, I want the starting point of this strap to be under the gun. I want it to be on the very bottom part. That way you don't see where it starts, and it'll just look, I feel like it'll look a little bit more interesting. I'll put a little bit of pressure under the gun and get it to stick. Now the next trick is to get this bottom part threaded through the other side. Just gonna lift it with my toothpick. Try to get it to go through there. Push it through the bottom, and I'm being really gentle with it. I'm not trying to force it. Kind of letting it do its own thing. Pushing it up against the side of the gun so it looks like it's tight. Pulling it around. And now here, see how it went right next to this other strap? I think it'd be more interesting if it overlapped that strap. So I'm going to pull it back out and get it to overlap that. Maybe seat it in place with my toothpick here, kind of pull it tight. Push a little bit in there. Gives me a tiny little bit of overlap, and I think that'll be cool when we get paint on it. Go through there one more time. That'd be cool. I was putting one of these together the other day, hanging out with a buddy, and I kind of wanted that sort of ragtag look. And I asked him, like, do you think this looks like it's enough? And he was like, no, man, if you're going to go, just go all the way. You know, you got to really wrap that thing. And so I did. I just wrapped the shit out of it. And I'm glad I did. It looked so much cooler than if I just put a few wraps around it. And that's not to say that it couldn't look cool if it wasn't. If it was sparsely wrapped, it just really stepped it up and looked extra cool. We're back through there again. Around. Being really gentle. Keeping my toothpick wet. Okay, so now I don't want to go back through there, but I also want to change that angle because I feel like it needs to look like it's wrapped tight. So I'm going to push this over a little bit. And I'm going to actually grab it just a hair and pull it really, really gently. And that'll sort of seat it. Ooh, that looks kind of neat. I'm going to pull that back out though. Keep working with it. See there, I grabbed it too hard and I actually pulled a little chunk off the tip, but that's okay. It'll actually work out really well. And you'll see when we get to the end. Keep wrapping it. And I like, spin it and look at both sides and make sure you're where you want to be. Now, this is where the end of the strap is coming. So I'm going to take it, pull it around, gently kind of blend it into the barrel there. And we're going to roll out another one. Table wet, fingers wet. And now that we don't have to thread this through any parts anymore, it's going to be a lot easier to get a nice wrap on that thing. And when you're doing this, I think it's kind of important to keep it all the same size. You don't really want it to go thick and then thin, and it's okay to have a little undulation in there, but you want to keep it relatively the same thickness. Looking pretty good. Toothpick. Pull this out flat. And it's going to want to get a little longer when you're rolling it. It's kind of cool. I just can't stress enough that there is a window in which this is easiest. And if you're really struggling and having trouble trying to get these to work and it just seems like they're too sticky or it just doesn't want to work right, just roll it back up and wait. Let it set up. I'm just holding one end, pick it up, hold one end, and stretching it. So I cut that into 2 pieces. That way it's not completely unmanageable to work with. Now, like I did earlier, I'm gonna drape this over in a way where I can try to start it on the bottom of the barrel. And one thing that you can do to help you get started is when you lift up your green stuff, create a hook in the end of it, like a shepherd's cane or something like that. Use your knife and your toothpick, and that'll help. It'll be a little easier to loop that on the end of the barrel. So I've got it seated at the bottom. I keep my toothpick wet so it's not sticking, but I'm pushing it up against the wrap. And I'm gonna wrap it looser and get to the end. And I think and then when we can come back with the other one and start overlapping them. So here's a trick you can do when you get to the end of the wrap. I've got it seated on the barrel there. I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, brace my hands together nice and steady. And what I'm doing is I'm going to cut the edge of this wrap off. And what that does is it creates a point. Use my toothpick, push it back up against the other wrap, and it creates the illusion that that wrap is underneath the other one, that it's ended there. And that way it's a way of hiding the end of the strap, but also creating visual interest at the same time, which is cool. That's what you want. You want visual interest. So, okay, here's a good example of something that happens when you're working with these. My table got dry and now this green stuff is stuck to the mat. Not a huge deal. I'm just going to put a little bit more water on the table and slide my knife underneath it. Get that water worked back up underneath it. I marred it on the end. I'm going to cut that off. Now it's going to be easier to pick up. Create that hook again like we talked about. Drape it over the barrel. My toothpick. Pick a spot that I want it to start and seat it. In a lot of green stuff work, it's like you have to figure out where that contact point's going to be and commit to it. Like when I do beards and hair, it's like the first thing that I work on is seating it up against the skin. And in this case, it's the end of the wrap. I want to seat that up against it so it's not going to want to come off. And it's going to be a lot easier to work it around the barrel. It's not going to want to fall off. Now at this point I'm going to be focusing on covering the spots that are exposed to make it look like it's wrapped really tight. Pretty cool. I see an opportunity here. So I'm happy. I think that looks pretty cool. Like it looks a little loose almost, but it's going to be cool looking when it's painted. It's a little loose there, so I'm gonna wrangle that in. Gonna pull it back down a hair. Be careful not to mar the other stuff. It actually looks kind of cool just like that. And if you wanted, like, you could leave that. It'll stick on there. And that, you know, it'll dry a little gummy, but you could leave that. But I'm going to stick to my original plan and show you what I was going for. So I'm going to pull this back down. And here we have a strap that goes from the bottom left to the top right, like this. And this strap is coming over from the other side, crisscrossing. I'm going to take my knife like we did earlier, and I'm going to run it exactly parallel to that inner strap, and I'm going to push and cut it. Grab my toothpick, keep it wet. What I'm doing is I'm cutting the strap and giving it that illusion like it looks like it's tucked under the other one. All right, I'm happy with that. And now you can leave that. You can give it more detail if you wanted. You can take your toothpick and really carefully, like, brace your hands, keep it wet, and you can run it up and down the straps and give it, you know, kind of massage them in place tighter if you wanted, and it sort of gives them 3D depth. Like the more, I don't know if you can see that, but if I just barely hit it like that, it just gives it a little bit of, like, it's tighter up against the gun. I'm going to leave that loose on the end of the barrel. I think that looks really cool like that. So I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let that dry. Over here, the bottom of the gun there, it's a little tiny little bit marred from just the application, so I'm going to wet the toothpick, just kind of slightly push it, going with the flow, pushing down, creating it tighter. Now if I were to be going this way, it would loosen that up here, so you just want to keep that in mind, pushing it the right direction to tighten it. And at the same time, I'm smoothing the face of the strap to look like it's more natural and tighter on the barrel. And in, same with this one. Trying to make it look like, at the end of the day, it's not putty on the model, in that when this thing's painted, it looks like it's a legit barrel wrap on here, and it's gonna look badass. And from here on out, it's just kind of tweaking. You could sit here and mess with it for a while, but sometimes it's better to just leave it look natural. Gonna push that fold in a little tighter. Yeah, we've got ourselves a barrel wrap. Not bad. All right, I hope that this helped you guys out. Thanks for checking it out. Make sure you send me your examples and stuff. I love it when you guys show me your work. I love it. I think it's cool. Keep working, keep getting better. We're always learning. Yeah. All right, guys. Have fun. Peace.